All right, what's going on, you guys? It's your boy Three Stickity Stacks in this thing, baby, representing TKOG. And like I was saying in my Ancient Warriors video, I did pick up the branded stuff. I do have the whole core, and I've been experimenting with it. And you guys already know one of the decks that immediately crossed my mind was SHADDOLL's. I was messing around with the actual Despia deck. I guess now we're calling it a branded deck, but I was messing around with Despia's, playing Despia SHADDOLL's and Despia Invoked when it wasn't as powerful as it is now. I didn't have like the structure deck and the newer support that came out, and it was really strong then. It like the playstyle really just matched what SHADDOLL's already were so good at, and I felt like it was just such a great synergistic there was just such great synergistic properties that both the archetype slash engines had combined. It was just really good. Like you're able to solidify win conditions that SHADDOLL's didn't have, and then SHADDOLL's gave like the Despia at that time a win condition they didn't really have, because like of a truth, your win condition was either you were like burning people with Masquerade or you were just out resourcing them, because like Guardian Chimera wasn't out. Branded Red was pretty much your best play. The Branded Fusion and all those cards weren't even out yet, so Jester was subjectively a weaker card at that time. And the SHADDOLL's really were like the backbone that kept the engine thriving, and now it's so different, and I really feel like the synergy is even stronger because both engines can get you access to one another, which is really cool. The SHADDOLL's have like a one card play that can make you a Verde that can get you to Branded Fusion, but what I like doing is bridging my Branded into my SHADDOLL's, because I still value the SHADDOLL's higher than any engine in my deck. This is Bist. You know how people call that that engine deck Bist. This is Bist. It's Branded, Invoked, SHADDOLL, Dogmatika. So I called it Bist. This is my acronym for it. I'm going to make this a thing. It's really cool. It's really fun. My list is exactly 40 cards. I'm thinking about bumping it to 45 so I can play more hand traps, but right now I'm really liking it a lot. So I'm going to show you guys some combos. Before we get into it, if you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to my channel. If you are subscribed, leave a like. If you like the video, leave a like. Leave a dislike if you don't, and make sure that you click the notification bell as well if you are subscribed already. And lastly, if you want to support my channel even further, you can join my Discord or become a member of my Patreon. All have their own benefits for being a part of them, but nonetheless, just you watching the video is support enough. So let's get into it. So we'll start with 1 card, 2 card, and then 3 card combos. I won't go to 4 because 4 is just obscenely unrealistic, but the first thing we're going to talk about and that we're going to get into is what Branded Fusion does for the SHADDOLL deck itself. So this is an incredible play starter for SHADDOLL's. Even though you typically people go for Mirror Jade, I do think Mirror Jade's a great card, but I think that the value that you'll get out of Mirror Jade doesn't compare to the value you'll get out of SHADDOLL's. SHADDOLL's will give you a play that you can just kind of just use for the remainder of the duel. You can go up to turn 7 with very poor resource management and still live up to turn 7. Granted, duels don't last that long, but it's just the point that like a Branded Fusion into Mirror Jade and like looping your Branded in red, it's not really gonna, it hits different when you're doing it with SHADDOLL's, because the SHADDOLL's have impeccable resources that you can get access to, a utility of the toolbox that the SHADDOLL's give you access to, you know, just incredible, you know, kind of get out of jail free cards that the SHADDOLL's offers. So here's what Branded Fusion can do when you're splashing it in SHADDOLL's versus splashing SHADDOLL's in the Despia deck. What I'm doing is I'm taking a power play from the Branded archetype and utilizing it as a starter for my SHADDOLL's, a starter for my Invoked. If I have an Invocation and not an Alistair, I can dump Alistair off of this. If I have access to all my engines, I can just go for a Mirror Jade. She's an incredible card. So here's what 1 Branded Fusion does for the SHADDOLL's. So what we're going to do is, this is combo number 1. We're going to activate Branded. We're going to send Fallen of Albaz, and we're going to go ahead and send Squamata. We're going to send Albaz and a Dark. And ironically enough, the fusion that we're summoning is conveniently a light attribute. So what we're going to do is we're going to summon Lubellion. Lubellion Chainlink 1, Squamata Chainlink 2. So you still pay your cost. So this is like a 1.5 card combo, but nonetheless, it's still a self-contained. It's predominantly a self-contained 1 card combo, because it doesn't really matter what you discard. All that matters is that you just have another card in your hand. So Lubellion, Squamata, you're going to pitch a card for cost for Lubellion. And then since Squamata's Chainlink 2, it's going to go ahead and send Windy. Oh, whoops. This is the pile of cards I'm using the combo. So you'll go ahead and send your Windy. Resolve Lubellion by shuffling his self and by shuffling the Squamata. And Construct is actually a level 8 or lower fusion, so it meets the criteria for this card's summoning condition. We will summon Construct, and on a separate chain, now we have Construct 1, Windy 2, or if you value Windy even more, you could say Windy 1, Construct 2. It's just up to you. Most of the time you have Meltdown, so often it doesn't really matter what your chain links are, but that's another perk, because like Branded Lost is an amazing card, but I still just feel like Meltdown's stronger because Meltdown applies so much more pressure and it requires the attention of hand traps immediately when it's activated. Whereas with Branded Loss, you have to have good engine already in play to be able to capitalize off of its other benefits, and just its protection is only good. But like the thing with Meltdown is like it immediately gets you access to a fusion play and it already has the protection. So I still think Meltdown's a better card and it's easier to access in this deck at least. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna use the Windy to summon Hedgehog from our deck, and we will use the Construct to send the Resh. Hedgehog will be face down. We'll then use Resh to flip the Hedgehog and activate Hedgehog's effect, and we'll search either Schism or SHADDOLL Fusion. It depends what you want. If you're playing around Cyclone and you're playing around Ghost Spell, because Ghost Spell is actually a thing, it's really popular. You might want to prioritize SHADDOLL Fusion. You can still get Schism later. But SHADDOLL Fusion will kind of guarantee a play that can't really be played around. They could Cyclone this, and you could still chain it, So it's just a pin. But if you want the full value, Schism's going to give you the most value because it's a continuous, and you generate advantage every turn on your turn and your opponent's turn. And on top of that, it gives you spot removal that doesn't target or destroy, which is really, really good because there's a lot of light and dark decks right now. So most of the fusions you summon are just going to clear a body for free. So this is what Branded Fusion does for SHADDOLLs. It is a one-card kind of full combo, full setup per se. If you had any other starter for your Invoked engine, or your SHADDOLLs, or even your Dogmatika portion of your deck, you can definitely go a different route with Branded Fusion, but I feel this is the highest value you could get out of Branded Fusion by accessing the SHADDOLLs. You can always go for Mirror Jade. That's already common knowledge. The other cool synergy with Lubellion exclusively is because most of your good fusions are lights or darks. Lubellion, and because they're fusions as well, Lubellion can actually recycle your Opcalone and your Macabre to summon out cards like Mirror Jade, and you can actually just recycle your Invoked and your SHADDOLL engine by using your Despia / Branded engine, because Lubellion will shuffle those cards back to get Mirror Jade, which is really, really clutch, so your grind game's even stronger. Granted, the grind game is already impeccable. It's just amazing that you have that added benefit as well just by playing this engine. You can play less in your extra deck and get away with it because Lubellion can put those cards back. So in my list, I'm only playing one Macabre right now, and I'm just recycling the Macabre as well as the Aguadis whenever I need it again. So it's really, really cool. I like it a lot. So that is a one-card combo off Branded Fusion. There's a lot of one-card combos off Branded Fusion, but I think, in my opinion, being the SHADDOLL fanatic that I am, I think that's the strongest combo for my list, at least, that Branded Fusion offers me. It's a one-card Dragoon. It can be a one-card Window. You can just summon Window right off the bat on your first turn. But I think summoning Window on your opponent's turn is a lot more impactful, especially with cards like Schism, because you'll still get Window, but the thing is you'll also be able to remove a card in the process. And you won't lose as hard to Dark Ruler because you have to force your opponent to commit first to force you to flip the Schism versus already having Window in the field, and it's a little bit easier to play around it that way, if that makes sense. So we know Alistair is a one-card Macabre. We know that Nadir is like a one-card many different things. We know Ecclesia is a one-card starter. SHADDOLL Fusion and also Branded Fusion. These are all one-card starters. This deck has a lot of one-card starters, which is why I'm very tempted to play more hand traps, because I can get away with it. Because like when you really think about it, especially going second, this deck becomes a lot more consistent because SHADDOLL Fusion then becomes a one-card starter. But even just taking this out the picture, you're basically playing, 14 one-card starters? Really 15 because you play Terraforming. 15 one-card starters for when you're going first. And you have combinations of cards that can change so many different things, which is just, to me, is just incredible. So let's say you had Branded Fusion plus Ecclesia, or even Nadir Servant, which is probably more powerful. It changes just slightly, being that you don't have to utilize Branded Fusion to access your SHADDOLL engine. So you can actually just Branded Fusion. So this is like a two-card combo. You can actually just Branded Fusion and you can send Albaz. And at that point, like when I really don't want to discard, you just typically go for Albion as soon as I find my light. And I typically just send like an Ecclesia because I play 3. I wanted to test Snow, but the thing was I could get access to Snow consistently, but my grave really didn't have very many cards to kind of tweak with her. So more often than not, Snow required for me to sacrifice an arm and a leg just to use her once. So even though she seems good on pen and paper, this deck doesn't really load its graveyard with a lot of food for Snow to eat very fast. So a lot of the times you might have 4 cards in your grave if you're lucky, including Snow, which means you're benching from your field. So the only thing you could really do is capitalize off of Snow in the mid to late game, which means that she's not going to be able to be used like excessively in the early game. So sometimes Golden Lord is a better option, but I just figured I'll just play just 1 less brick and not play Golden Lord or Snow, and just utilize the Dogmatikas to fulfill the purpose of being a light target as well. So we'll go into Albion. We'll go ahead and activate the Albion on summon. This is Branded Fusion, so 1 card combo. And this is very simple. We're just going to go straight to Mirror Jade. I always summon her in defense. The next thing that you'll do is you'll activate Nadir. You'll dump Aqualone, and if you don't want to discard anything in your hand, it's totally fine. What I like to do is I like to add the Ecclesia from my grave to my hand to kind of get my opponent to feel like they're telegraphing that I only play 1. And that can come up because if they get rid of that, they feel like they're cutting access from my Dogmatika engine. So you know, it's really, really cool to play that way. So we'll add the Ecclesia from the grave to the hand off of the Nadir. Separate Chain will activate Aqualone. So if you don't want to discard anything in your hand, you can discard Ecclesia and get access to Schism. And Schism will still be many different things. It'll be a myriad of plays for you. It can be Winda, Construct, you know, and then you could get Aqualone on your following play. But typically, I feel like Ecclesia is probably better than 2 or 3 of the other cards in my hand. So I discard another random after I resolve the Aqualone. So Nadir's resolved, now Separate Chain Aqualone. You can add Schism, you can add, you know, SHADDOLL Fusion. Typically, if I don't have any other dolls, I add Schism. Discard a random, special the Ecclesia, and activate her effect. And just depending on how I'm feeling, I either go for Punishment or I go for the I go for the Fleur-de-Lis. Like, if I have this kind of setup, I feel like it's more valuable to get Fleur-de-Lis because I don't really have any form of negation. I just have a lot of spot removal, right? So I feel it's a little redundant to get Dogmatika Punishment because you have spot removal off Schism and you have spot removal off Mirror Jade. So you want a little bit more diversity in your forms of interaction on your opponent's turn. So having that negate, I think, is better than just like 3 flat-out spot removals, especially when all 3 of them only work on monsters. You know, you might as well just get yourself a nice little negate that can add some pressure to your end board. So I'll typically search this and then keep Punishment for my worst case scenario. On your opponent's turn, you know, you have Schism to interact with them. You also will have the Mirror Jade, which will dump your Lubellion. And, you know, you'll get another Branded Fusion. That Branded Fusion can turn into different things. So, you know, it's like a really, really cool setup. It's a lot more impactful than just Branded Fusion alone. Just adding that Nadir in combination with Branded Fusion is like bread and butter. The only engine that you haven't seen is your Invoked at that point, because you're seeing Dogmatikas, you're seeing SHADDOLLs, and you're seeing your branded engine as well, which is really, really impactful. So I like this deck a lot. I just think it has such cool synergy. All the engines kind of just synergize with each other. Even the Invoked plays, which is really, really cool. That worst case scenario, if you have Alvas plus any light or dark, Alistair can become a play starter for your branded engine. You can just Invocation and hard fuse for cards like Albion and Lubellion, which is like a worst case scenario, but the fact that all of your engines kind of correspond with each other. Nadir Servant can start your branded, your Dogmatika, or your SHADDOLL engine, which is just incredible. So Nadir is just like a no-brainer. It's just such a powerful card. To this day, I just feel like it's not going anywhere now. It's at 2. I'm going to show you guys one of my favorite combos with the Invoked portion of my deck. So it's going to be a combination of away to Alistair, away to SHADDOLL Fusion, or SHADDOLL Fusion, and you play multiples of all these. So it's like you have like 6 and 6, and then either Wendy or Squamata. So like this combo is very consistent in my list because it's not like I'm drawing 3 3-ups. I'm drawing like 3 like cards that I have more than 3 of. So like you have like 6 6, and then you have like 4 of these, which is really, really clutch. So I'll show you guys what this combo can do. There's a lot of different options. And I haven't even been summoning DPE either. I've just been showing you guys just this you know, all these combos are bread and butter for your engines, but like you could go for DPE at any given time with this deck. So there's just so many different power plays this deck has and boss monsters, and your outlets to fusion summon are just immense, you guys. And anything you haven't drawn, Verde can just access it for you. So it's just really, really strong. Granted, I think my Verde and my DP are still in my Striker extra deck because I was just being lazy. So yeah, I think I should grab them. I'm just gonna grab my Verde and my DP real quick. So there's my DPE. There's my Verde. And my Kaliga, it just isn't sleeved with the same sleeves. So I guess I'll just pretend a card's Kaliga because I need a still a card from my extra deck of one of my other decks to sleeve up my Kaliga. This combo is kind of crazy too. So you can either have Meltdown or Alistair and either Windy or Squamata and either SHADDOLL Fusion or SHADDOLL Fusion. So your starters are less susceptible to certain hand traps depending on which ones they are. So I think that Meltdown is better to have than Alistair, especially because people ash this card all the time and they get punished by normal summon Alistair. I think that Squamata is better to have than Windy because if you get hand trapped in the middle of your combo, you can change your mind on what Squamata will do for you, whereas Windy is kind of locked into what she already does. That's why Squamata is the best SHADDOLL. And I also think SHADDOLL Fusion is better to have than SHADDOLL Fusion because this can be Ash Blossomed, whereas this cannot be Ash Blossomed at all. So I think these are the three higher quality, but you can have the same exact combo with these three cards below them. So you'll have like your Meltdown, Squamata, L, or you can have SHADDOLL Fusion, Alistair, and Windy. You know, it's just that consistent of a combo that you can draw a different combination of cards and still do the same thing. So what we'll do is we'll Meltdown into Alistair. We will summon the Alistair, and if he gets hand trapped, it's absolutely fine. When I say absolutely fine, I mean it's absolutely fine. You still have a really, really nasty SHADDOLL combo, and that's something else that SHADDOLLs offer to basically circumvent for weaknesses that Dogmatika and Invoked have. Like Invoked and Dogmatika can be hurt by cards like Droll and Lancia, where SHADDOLLs can play through those cards as if they never even existed. And the other cool thing is that Invoked allows you to bait Ash Blossom to force your SHADDOLL Fusion through. So it's really cool. You have all these different Called by the Graves that aren't even Called by the Grave. So we'll add Invocation. We'll link summon our Alistair into our Moon Maiden. And then we'll activate SHADDOLL Fusion. Since we have Meltdown, you'd really, typically when I have Meltdown, I just tell my opponent you can't respond anyway, so I'm just going to save time, you know, by not even declaring my chain link. So we're going to summon Construct, we're going to activate Construct and Squamata, we're going to dump our Trap, and we're going to dump Windy. And then separate chain Windy effect. And Windy will go ahead and summon out our Hedgehog. We're going to go ahead and flip our Trap, use our Trap to banish it in Windy, flip our Hedgehog, I meant to say. And then we're going to grab Schism or SHADDOLL Fusion. Since you already have SHADDOLL Fusion, you'll go ahead and grab Schism. So that's the other benefit of starting with L, is now you have two ways to interact on your opponent's turn as opposed to one. So you'll add Schism. You'll then go ahead and link these two off into your Verde Anaconda. And then you can activate Invocation. And typically I go for Kaliga, but if you guys wanted to summon Makaba instead of Kaliga, then you would just summon Makaba early through your combo. You would summon Makaba, like after you resolve SHADDOLL Fusion, then you would summon Makaba and just keep playing that way. But I always go for Kaliga. I think it's stronger. That is where your Squamata can be a bit more handy because you get a Dark in your grave earlier as opposed to towards the middle or the end of your combo. So just little things that can change based on which starters you have. You might get higher quality plays. So we'll activate the Invocation. We'll go ahead and summon the Kaliga that's in another deck box right now. So we'll banish Alistair. And I think banishing Squamata is totally fine, because you can actually recycle Squamata with your Lubellion. And then we're going to go ahead and summon our Invoked Kaliga. We'll make Raijin be Kaliga for right now. This is Invoked Kaliga. So we'll kind of put that face down. And then we'll activate our one monster effect this turn by using Verde Anaconda and summoning DPE. Don't forget the Invocation, put it back, add back Alistair. And the last thing that I forgot to do, because I was kind of speed playing, is add SHADDOLL Fusion from our graveyard to your hand off of Construct's effect. So what you have right here is you have Kalika to lock your opponent entirely out of the game, DPE to pop the monster that they normal summon to even attack over this in the first place, which means you don't have to make your only monster effect be Alistair. You have Schism and El Shaddol. So that means you have Winda and a follow-up play with your Shaddol engine. You have follow-up off of the DPE engine. You have follow-up off of your Invoked engine. You have immense plays on your opponent's turn, and follow-up from every single card that you use kind of replaced itself. If you look at it bare minimum, Schism, El Shaddol Fusion, and Alistair were initially Alistair, El Shaddol Fusion, and Squamata. So these three cards are kind of like the same cards you started with. You've essentially replaced your entire hand and got a full board off of it, which is really, really cool. You know, the recursion that this deck has, the amount of plays that just naturally replace themselves as you make plays with this deck is really, really strong. The only thing that would have been crazier is if you had Nadir. But if you have Nadir, you kind of have no choice but to go for Makaba, because you want to at least be able to, you know, dump Op Clone and activate Op Clone, and, you know, it just gets a little different. So I think this is like a bread and butter combo. This is my go-to combo. This is one of the kind of plays that my deck is centered around, because if I had Fusion Destiny, for example, or if I had Branded Fusion, you know, you could go DP. But the cool thing is like the options that this deck has, that you have power plays that you can be patient with because you have so many power plays. Like I could choose to hold DPE and not play DPE yet, because Mirror Jade I think doesn't play into as many scenarios that DPE plays into. And most of the time I use DPE to pop monsters anyway, so Mirror Jade's kind of just a better spot move in that regard. With a follow-up that can get me access to my Shaddol cards with no RNG required, whereas with DPE, the random draws I get, I don't know if I'll draw Shaddol engine or not. So sometimes it's better to start with Mirror Jade and then hold DPE for your follow-up play, so it just gets more insane. But other times it is better to go for DPE because you have more ways to access your branded engine without Verde Anaconda than you do to access your Destiny Fusion without Verde. So going for DPE first can make your life easier, because then you don't have to worry about waiting such a long time to get access to them later, because you have to RNG into them. Whereas with the branded, the Dogmatika engine can access it. Your Shaddol engine can access it to an extent. It's just really, really cool what this deck can do. So there's more combos, but those are kind of just like combo lines that you can make with this deck. It's not a combo deck. That's why I feel like there's not very many combos that should be shown, but those are just like go-to inboards that you can get access to fairly easily. And just knowing what your priorities are as far as your engines, that will determine kind of the sequence of how you play. Because for me, I value Shaddolls over everything. So if I have Shaddol starters, but I also have Invoked and branded starters, I will play those first and then use my Shaddol cards last. And sometimes I even do that with Branded Fusion, because it is technically a Shaddol starter, which is incredible. It can even dump Alistair if you just have a dead invocation in your hand, and you could turn your Invoke engine on and then still normal summon Alistair, so you can make a double fusion. So like if you open like Branded Fusion with Invocation, sometimes you can end on Mirror Jade with Makaba and another Invoke Fusion of your choice, depending on what you discard and what you have. So that's a 2-card combo that can get you 3 disruptions, which is really, really cool. So I think this deck is amazing. I call it Bist. I think it's a meta contender. I believe in it. I really think it's a very strong deck. It has access to so many power plays. I play Terraforming Mystic Mind. You can play Rotation Sacred Village of the Spellcasters. I mean, the deck just has so many avenues and separate win conditions. You can even play Masquerade and even bigger Despia engines. So it's just up to you. I'm keeping it 40 cards for right now, but I might go to 45 to play more hand traps. I'm playing, 10 going second cards right now. I think I just want to play like 15 going second cards and just like drop a 1-card combo, and yeah, it's just amazing. God bless you guys. Make good choices. Don't hurt your brain cells. Stay tuned for future content. Y'all have a wonderful day and be safe, all right? The list will be up after I've tested it more in duels. I don't want to just throw a list at you that I haven't been playing as much yet. So peace.